A cozy fire crackled next to him as Carter still tried to get rid of his chains holding his wrists together. The links were fairly damaged, but he had been on it 2 days already and he was starting to get annoyed. It was a hazard to sleep or eat, but what really worried him was when he would have to fight. Another thing was the damage the matter was doing to his wrists due to the friction. Giving up for the evening, he tried to sleep without being driven mad by the clinking. In the morning he traveled on, avoiding people, avoiding towns. Finding an isolated farm, he sneaked into the barn in hope of finding any helpful tools. As he was rummaging around, he was far too occupied to notice the owner of the barn entering behind. Only when the hammer was drawn back, Carter stopped to listen. A thief? Slowly the outlaw raised his hands. And a criminal too. How about you get back behind bars? I would rather not. Get out! Look, sir, he tried to appease the man behind. I just need some help here. Carter stopped talking when he felt the barrel press against his head. Only reason I don't blow your head off, the other man hissed, is because it would make a mess. To say that Carter was annoyed would have been an understatement. Without those irritating chains, he would have drawn his Colt and ended the problem. He couldn't, however, rely on the man's reluctance to pull the trigger out of laziness when it came to cleaning up a mess. So he went outside and he kept walking until he had left the farmer's property. God damn it, Carter cursed to himself when he mounted Runner. With Texas sun burning on his back, he traveled on while trying to think of a new solution. Sometimes traveling alone was a hazard. He had never felt that grim and lonely in the army, but the hatred inside refused to give him any rest. Carter gave Runner the lead as he started to nod off on the horse's back. It didn't matter where he ended up. He couldn't look for Dabney with bound hands. Perhaps he would run into him. That way he could strangle him with his shackles. Please! Carter snapped awake at the screams of his family, which turned into those of distressed men. Several gunshots echoed from afar. Runner was halfway climbing, halfway walking through a hilly landscape, and his rider could see down into the valley a few feet deeper, which stretched into a sandy, rocky plain. Down there was a group of bandits looting a broken wagon and the dead civilians lying around it. When the last man was about to be shot, Carter took his rifle and shot the bandit. He shot another and another. Hindered by bound hands, he was still too slow for the bandits, however. They were shooting back and coming for him. Still using the rifle, he drove Runner down the path. The first man he rode down. The other, reacting too late, he shot. The third managed to drag him from his stallion. They rolled in the dirt as the last man caught up, aiming with his pistol. Carter only saw it from the corner of his eye, but that was enough for his reflexes. Since his hands were useless as long as they were still bound to each other, Carter used his feet to get the other man off him. He rolled to the side just in time to avoid a bullet. Getting to his feet, he ran head first into the man shooting at him. Both fell, which caused the pistol to fly several feet due to the heavy impact. Wrapping his hands around his opponent's throat, he wanted to get this done quickly. Only that the other man came from behind with the same plan aimed at Carter. Gasping for air, he used his elbow to shake off the attacker. Before he knew, he found himself beneath one of his attackers again, this time with a knife aimed at his throat. He could feel his muscles protest when he struggled to wield off the pointy end of the blade. In the last moment, he directed the course so it would stab his shoulder instead. Slapping the bandit across the face gave Carter time to pull out the blade. Hot blood leaked onto him when he cut the man's throat. With shock written all over his face, the last survivor started running. But Carter was in the wrong mood for mercy and gave chase. Gripping the knife with both hands, he tackled the escapist by sinking the knife into the man's back. Carter kept stabbing until the body grew limp. He was panting in the hot sun, and all he could smell and taste was the blood as his own roared in his ears. The thrill of the kill let him feel pure ecstasy for a moment. His only regret was that they hadn't been bluebellies. "You are going native, Stephen," He spoke into the sandy wind. Only rebels think of them as bluebellies. He chuckled, but it was cold and menacing, and bitter. You are neither. Seeing his opportunity to get rid of the awful chains, he made his way down to the only survivor. You saved me! God be praised! The man came stumbling towards him. He wore a black robe and was far too well fed to be one of the good folks around, if there were any. It was an accident, believe me, Carter remarked with an edge in his voice. The man, on the other hand, was oblivious to the steely tone. He was in his 30s, a few years younger than Carter, with no beard but short dark hair. From the eyes, the former soldier could tell this man had never experienced true harshness. Since you are here, he pushed his own pistol into the man's hands. Take that and shoot those damn things off. What? How? The stranger stammered, holding the weapon like some unknown utensil. That moron had no idea how to hold it. Point and shoot! Seeing the loose aim made the outlaw actually fear for his safety, causing him to jump aside. Not me, the chain! Carter ducked when one shot whistled past his ear, and another hit the ground just in front of his toes. A third round almost hit Runner, leaving the horse kicking in alarm. All right, he sighed in defeat. With brisk steps he closed the gap between him and the man and took back his weapon before someone could get hurt. Never mind. He turned around to go back. What are you doing? The man shouted from behind. You can't leave me here, in this desert. Carter turned around and mustered the stranger with a bored expression. Last time I checked, you had 2 legs, and lots of guns. He motioned at the dead man's weapons on the ground. Dismay unfolded in the brown eyes when the churchman understood. Gathering his wits, he just kept talking, obviously the only thing he was good at. You want to get out of those shackles? Oil might be the remedy. Yeah, Carter laughed without joy. I'll just get to the store and buy some. The outlaw fell silent when another thought crossed his mind. Unless, he grinned when a plan formed in his head, he would just use that civilian to do his bidding. Before he could say more, the sound of a discharging firearm echoed over the plain. Carter had been sloppy. One of the bandits hadn't been dead, and was now shooting at him from between the rocks. The shot missed, giving Carter the time he needed to take aim himself. One well-placed bullet sent the man 1 plane below. Come along, carpetbagger, the older man remarked. He wasn't eager to stick around for more surprises. Except you want to be next. I'm a parson, the stranger countered defiantly, but with a fearful glimmer in his eyes. You can be St. Peter for all I care. Carter snarled at his new company. Reaching a hint of civilization, Carter remained amongst bushes and rock with the 2 horses while instructing his new associate. The cleric wasn't happy about a long walk in the sun, but the outlaw didn't trust him to come back when on a horse, nor did he want to give up his own hiding spot to go closer. The accessory on his wrist was making him paranoid. Bartholomew was surely taking care of new wanted posters, eager to find the former captain's trail. A quick glimpse and any civilian would know what was up with him. Buy some gun oil or kerosene, whatever you find. What makes you think I won't just run off? The priest seemed to realize his own mistake, for he grew rigid at once when Carter pierced him with this penetrating stare. Letting a faint note of humor into his voice, he answered, Good point. Going closer, he took the priest's cross. With a short, strong tug, the pendant came loose. Hey! It was the first time the outlaw heard something like rage in the other man's voice. He had been silent and submissive on the whole way, afraid to end up dead in the wilderness. Now you will do as you're bloody damn well told, came the order in a cold voice of authority. Damn rebel. the other man muttered, making his way into town. "Ain't no more rebel than I ain't a Yankee no longer," Carter said in a low voice. He wondered for a short moment why that statement was upsetting him, but it did. Somewhere deep inside he despised that man who had a life to get back to. He resented himself for making the wrong decision, fighting against his family instead of against the Union. He sat down when the hot wind brought with it a new wave of exhaustion. Somewhere from the deep recesses of his mind he heard raging flames and hoofs, and the hoot of a ghostly owl. Starting awake, he took his gun, which had lain across his legs, and jumped to his feet. It was night, and the chill air drove a shiver down the man's spine due to his clammy skin. Hearing a noise, he turned around to find the priest, who stared wide-eyed at his captor. A fire crackled next to him. "Please, I did what you asked," the man uttered with his hands in the air. The fear in the man's voice brought Carter back to reality. He probably looked like straight out of a nightmare himself, with wide eyes and still covered in blood. He was losing himself, he realized. His quest for vengeance made him a true killer. Coming out of his own shock, Carter took down the gun. "Don't worry," he said in a warm voice he had forgotten he was capable of. "Ain't shooting you." "Can I go now?" came the hopeful question when Carter sat down next to the fire. Seeing his gentleness from before as a mistake, he fixed the man with a hard stare. "I still need you." "For what?" The outlaw drew back the hammer of his gun without talking. The supple clicking sound let the priest fall silent. Taking the bottle standing on the ground, he opened it. He wasn't interested in the label, he just poured it over the metal around his hands. He suppressed a groan when the liquid caused his battered skin to burn. The man next to him, observing his struggle, offered help, but Carter turned away. With turning and twisting and a lot of force, he finally got free. He looked at his free hands for a moment as new ease settled inside his guts. "I bought new clothes, too," his company said almost apologetically. Carter looked at his shirt, which was covered in blood as well from his earlier murder spree. Taking it off, he wiped his hands and threw it into the fire. "We haven't introduced each other," the priest remarked when Carter got up and disappeared into the shadows for a second. "What's the point, if you want to leave?" The outlaw answered, buttoning the new shirt. The priest looked at him for a while. There had been fear, even disgust in those eyes the day before. Now there was something else too. Curiosity. "You're marked for death." Carter remained silent and watched the flames. When he sat back down, that man knew who he was. The older man didn't care. "And you are here to bring me in?" "The man who saved my life?" Not looking away from the fire, the outlaw took a deep breath. He wasn't interested in idle talk. He never had been at the best of times. "Thank you for the shirt." He tried to extinguish the conversation. "I think you struggle to be good, but you want to," Carter answered by laying down with his back to the other man. "I am here to take your burdens." "Shut up! I don't need to confess nothing," he retorted in the same cold voice he had used before. This time it worked. St. Peter did shut up. "You didn't see a blonde bastard in town, did you?" Carter asked without emotion when he made himself ready to travel on. "No. Should I have?" the priest answered, still moody about being dragged along. Carter didn't give a shit. He needed a spy, someone who would not draw attention. The plump man next to him was perfect for that task. "Would have made things easier," Carter grunted while mounting his horse. Neither of the two men spoke. The outlaw's moment of weakness soon faded as he kept the stony mask which hid his true intentions. His companion was clever enough to not push his luck by talking too much or trying to escape. Yet no matter which town he sent his unwilling spy into, no one had seen a man matching Dabney's features. priest was afraid enough to do as Carter demanded. Would he have been a bit braver, he would just have made for his freedom or tipped off the sheriff. Some part of him, however, seemed to be grateful to be still alive, wherefore he refused to sell out the outlaw. A few years prior, Carter would have been honored by such a gesture. Now it only annoyed him. It was a weakness that could cost a man his life in the wilderness where everyone was after his head. Even Bartholomew had tried to bring him in. Carter gazed into the distance where the air glimmered due to the heat. He felt his mind slip away as he sat there waiting for St. Peter to return. Runner, done with eating his grain, came closer to snort his rider into the face. Carter raised a hand, although his mind was absent. The sound of feet sliding over sandy ground let the man snap to attention. His horse, too, pricked his ears to listen. Taking his rifle, he followed along the sandy slope of the hill. Not a sound came from him. Even his breathing was shallow. Reaching the corner, he steeled himself to be attacked, but when he rounded it, he only found the empty path lying in the shade. Feeling someone jump on him from above, he fell, brought out of balance by the sudden weight. Rolling through the dust, he threw the stranger off, who jumped to his feet and came at him with a knife. A ragged grey uniform told Carter everything he needed to know. Not hesitating, he took his rifle. "Hold your fire!" came the order from behind. Still on his knees, Carter turned around. 5 to 6 men surrounded him. They all wore rags. Some were parts of the Confederate uniform, but most were civilian clothes. And the man who had spoken was holding a gun to the priest's head. The outlaw only cast his companion an annoyed look. "Sorry," St. Peter uttered, visibly pale. "Stephen Carter, those scars really sell you out now." "Yeah." Wind blew sand into Carter's eyes. He wasn't in the mood for fighting for his life. He didn't want to admit it, but the short brawl from before had left him breathing harder than he was used to. He was starting to get tired and old and weary of a life on the run. "I'm looking for a man." Carter started as if he didn't have a worry in the world. "Blonde, arrogant, former soldier?" "What's in it for us?" the leader of the group asked, but the mocking glint told Carter that he was just playing with him. "Your life," the former captain answered coldly. Anger was starting to cook to the surface again, not the kind of hate he felt for the Yankees, but not less fierce. They were trying to keep him from accomplishing his goal. They were trying to take vengeance from him. The group only chuckled. "Be reasonable, Mr. Carter. The right people will provide us with more than survival." With a nod from the leader, the men closed in to take Carter back to town. A glance at every man told the outlaw everything he needed. His own muscles tensed. One man had a slight limp. Another young one had eyes which had never seen death. The leader was arrogant and occupied with St. Peter. The one behind had only a knife. The other two seemed healthy compared to the rest. Those had to go first. Jumping forward, Carter drew his Colt and shot one in the chest. The other he tackled to the ground. By the time the other shot, he had drawn back the hammer of his Colt. A bullet to the head took the second man out. Carter heard the priest whimper when the leader was about to shoot him. Seeing the man with the knife on the move, Carter went to the leader. Just in time, he let the gun point towards the sky, where it fired upwards. In the blink of an eye, a knife was thrown. Carter used his opponent as a shield. The leader cried out when the blade fastened in his stomach, and again when Carter pulled it out. He slit the man's throat and kicked the priest. "Stay down!" The dying body he held in place until the other men had pulled their triggers. Another bullet sent the man with the knife to the ground. Carter ducked as enemy lead whistled past him. Rolling forward, he kicked the damaged leg of the limping man. The man hit the ground where Carter held him in position before shooting the youth in the arm. Still having the knife, he buried it in the limping man's chest. Carter's head was pounding from the exertion. Taking a breath, he got up and went to the youth. With gritted teeth, he stared defiantly at the outlaw. Carter kicked away the man's gun. I say it again. I'm looking for a man. You might find him across the desert. Now, Carter sat on his haunches. How could you know that? No answer came. Dozens of towns hadn't seen Dabney, and now a band of rebels had suddenly seen him. Carter grinned. He had left a message back then. Dabney left one now. Getting up, Carter turned to go. Hearing the wounded man struggle to his feet, the older man took his rifle, which still lay in the dust. Swinging around, he focused. Carter, no! But the trigger was already pulled, causing the weapon to kick back against his shoulder. It was a clean shot. It was also the first time Carter saw the priest's face, red with anger. Is there an oath you don't break? He shouted, coming closer. All fear was suddenly forgotten in the face of such cruelty. Anything holy to you? Everything holy to me. Carter clenched his fist as he stared into the younger man's furious eyes. Is gone. A dozen pictures flickered behind his eyes. He thought to see a questioning glimmer in the other man's face. Turning around, he pushed down the sudden outburst. Take his clothes. What? Put on some proper clothes or the next bandit will take you out. Carter snapped, walking back to the horses. And be quick about it.